Okay. Good evening. I am going to call the October 21st, 2024 meeting of the Woodbridge Board of Education to order at 7:06 p.m. This meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be available on the district website. I will call the roll. Stephen Lawrence.
Present.
Sarah Beth Del Pree. Jay Daya. Lauren Francesi. Present. Jeff Hughes.
Here.
Mike Strambler.
Here.
Not at the table at the moment is Brooke Hopkins and Aaron Williamson. I'm the GASIC chair. Staff in attendance this evening: Yvonne Tenza, Superintendent; Donna Coonan, Director of Business and Operations; Annalisa Sherman, Principal; Jimmy Sapia, Assistant Principal; and Marcia DeGenero, Clerk of the Board. I would ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next on the agenda is correspondence. Sarah Beth, do we have any correspondence that you're aware of?
Yes, all correspondence will be on report.
Okay. I don't know that there's any this month. Well, there's one. Okay, thank you. Okay, public comment. Is there any public comment this evening? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item 3, consent agenda. The minutes of the September 16th regular meeting are included in this evening's consent agenda, along with budget narrative, budget summary, budget detailed report. Also included are the following policies for 30-day review. Policy 9210, qualifications of board members; 9212, oath of office; 9230, orientation; 9240, board member development; 9260, protection; 9270, conflict of interest; 9271, code of ethics; 9321, time, place, and notification for meetings; 9314, suspension of policies, bylaws, regulations; 9300, methods of operation; and 9272, code of conduct on data use. Does anyone on the board wish to extract anything from tonight's consent agenda for discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to accept the consent agenda. Stephen? Do I have a second? Sarah Beth? Motion to accept the consent agenda made by Stephen Lawrence, seconded by Sarah Beth Del Pree. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. It's unanimous. I'll make note to the public that at 7:09, Ms. Williamson arrived. Welcome, Aaron. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 4, Superintendent's report. Ms. Tenza, that's you.
Good evening, everybody. I have a few things to touch on tonight. So the first thing I want to touch on briefly, I do believe that Principal Sherman will talk a little bit more about the first grade opening in her BRS report, so I don't want to step on any toes with that. But our enrollment stands currently at 864, 5 or 6 of each section. The board at the September meeting did vote to add one additional teacher for grade 1. So I will let Principal Sherman discuss that a little bit further in terms of the process and the status as to where we are right now. School news, so just a few things. I want to share that recently I was in a first grade classroom and the children were immersed in our new literacy program, learning about an important essential question: what makes our community special? It was a good question. What makes our community different and special compared to the other communities around us? And the children in first grade said BRS. And, the teacher, we all agreed, and she said, give me an example. And the children said, a Halloween hoot. Most schools that my cousins go to or my friends go to don't have anything like the Halloween hoot. And I do agree that is special. It's also coming up, so if you have any time this weekend on Saturday, I think it would be great for you to join us to see what is special. The PTO works really hard on that fundraiser. And, I chimed in and said that I think our teachers and staff make the community special, and they agreed. And our administrative team was talking about the fact that we think it's important that the community learns more about our K-3 new literacy program. So hot off the press, we've identified a date. More will come shortly. Tuesday, November 12th. We are going to have a Literacy Learn With Me community night for parents to come and learn, to actually see the materials and learn from us and see student work examples. They can ask questions, we can have good dialogue, and really communicate about the expectations for our children and what we are doing with this and what we're not, because sometimes some of the things in a canned program are too easy for our children. And we move on. I witnessed that in a math classroom. The teacher said, no, this part's too easy, we're moving on. So good decisions are being made. We also had a very exciting morning today, and I think Principal Sherman will also talk more about this, but we have had the opportunity through some excess coronavirus funds for all of the free lunches that we were reimbursed for. We had a surplus of money that was very specific about we could and could not spend that on, and we were able, through Donna's expertise, to secure a company that does, this is
Imaginate Your Space.
Imaginate Your Space, and they came in and met with us weekly, all summer long, and created a beautiful wooded wonderland. We have a new little owl mascot. His name is Timber, and you simply will not believe our cafeteria and workspace. It is incredible. I also want to talk a little bit more about our cafeteria. We have a new food service director. Nobody can replace Jane Roddy. We loved Jane Roddy. However, Jessica Hill is creating her own space in our school community, and she's very talented. So she has her own ideas, and she has increased membership in our program by doing things like making sandwiches to order instead of having them pre-made. And that has increased our sales almost 4 times, from maybe 8 to 25 a day. So that's pretty good. I'm also excited, and I noticed that Marcia put it on my calendar for us to walk up. They're doing a mashed potato bowl, so we're very excited about that as well. So she's got some really new ideas that I think will, again, help grow a program that Jane has spent years developing very solidly. So also, Jessica invited administration to help serve lunch. We're going to do round 2 of that in the spring, very well received by everybody. So we look forward to sharing more about that with you. We do just want to keep you updated on our roof and grounds project. It is still on pause, where construction is still working on roads that the governor had asked them to work on. We anticipate over the next few weeks that they will be back with us, and I will keep the community apprised of that. Once they start on certain areas, certain exits will be blocked, and staff and students will completely understand how to get out should the emergency arise. That'll all be clearly marked. But the good news is we've had a lot of rain and not one leak. That's amazing. In those areas.
You should all clap.
We should. Budget, you'll see a little bit later. Donna worked on a budget schedule, a proposed schedule, extremely similar to last year's. So we will go over that a little bit later, but it is on there for your discussion. And just a reminder that we focus all of our decisions around our vision, which is really to empower and inspire our future leaders to impact our world. And our children continue on up into Amity, and so in partnership, I think you'll see that we really do have a supportive community. I do want to end by talking briefly about achievement and growth. So shortly, you're going to hear Mr. Sapia, who worked with Mrs. Toffel and Mrs. Sherman, present some information about our achievement and growth from last spring's state assessments, Smarter Balanced and Next Generation Science. We're very proud to share these results, and I'd like to credit these data points to the hard work of our staff, because they're growing content and relationships with our learners. I also credit the hard work of our children. We have hardworking kids here, and they think creatively. I credit the success to the support of our families. They support their children, and the commitment to our budget, because they vote for our budget, which is deeply focused on learning based on our Board of Education's efforts. So as a longtime parent and educator, I also want to share that these summative data points, they're just one snapshot of one day in one time in 1 year. And there's a lot more to a learner than just a score. And Beecher Road School is about the whole child and the whole learner, and you'll probably hear this touched upon in our presentation, but we are deeply proud of the musicians and the artists and the athletes and the friends and the pet lovers that we are growing here, the community helpers, the service-minded children. Those are data points that we're not going to see tonight, but that we very much deeply respect in this district. So I also just want to share with you that in August at our convocation, I asked every person there to consider what John Hattie's statement said about what affects learning. And he is an educational researcher. He's been around quite a while. He's got some really good thoughts. And he says that there's no recipe, there's no professional development, there's no set of worksheets, there's no new teaching method, there's no new literacy program, there's no Band-Aid that's going to impact learning more than the staff member thinking about their role. And his sentence is that we need to think about my role as a teacher or employee, could be anything, could be a food service employer, is to evaluate the effect I have on my students. It's to know my impact. It's to understand my impact and act on this knowing and understanding. I need to think about what I'm doing. Is it making a difference or not? And I have to act on that. And that knowledge is what I asked each staff member to think about this year. Not just a teacher. I want you to know your impact. I want you to study your impact. I want you to grow it, and I want you to celebrate it. That's our charge for the year. So tonight, we are celebrating our impact, because reflecting on our learners' progress every day, and even a yearly data point like this, helps us be informed to know what our impact is. Our teachers have excellent impact on our learners, and we're excited to celebrate.
Thank you. Any questions about that? Comments on the board other than, great, everything sounds great. I want to go to the cafeteria. Right? Yeah.
These have some pictures, great.
Yeah. So, and not just to see the wonderful artwork, which I got a little sneak peek of today, but also to see the kids be excited about what they're eating for lunch. That's really nice, you know?
So from what we hear, they're talking about it. They're talking about it in the nurse's office.
My son came home today, talked about, they painted the cafeteria, you have to see it, there are owls on the walls, and I had a sunshine spread sandwich today. I'm like, I have no idea what that is. But he's like, I want it every day for lunch.
But like, yeah, the excitement.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's great. So if we pass on the board's.
Yeah, so always remember, even when somebody leaves, no matter how wonderful they are, and Jane is wonderful, sometimes a little bit of new is good. It's good.
So thanks for that. Next is adopt the educator evaluation plan. So I think there's
Yes.
something to say about that.
I do, just briefly.
Yep, and then we'll take a motion.
Yes, so I sent this plan to you to review. It's very long. I don't necessarily think we needed to read it word for word. What you do need to know is that the state has charged everybody quite a while ago with developing a new teacher and administrator evaluation plan. They kept extending their benchmarks and not providing a lot of guidance. They finally came out with, an example. And so some districts followed the example. We followed a lot of the example. We liked a lot of the pieces. Some districts didn't wait for the example because they didn't want to. They went into their own thing. So every town's plan looks different because every town is different and they have different interests and strengths and needs. So our plan was developed. We have a professional development evaluation committee. It has administrators and special education staff and teachers. It has a para. It has a lot of people on it. And they worked hard all last year and into the summer and then into the fall, quickly wrapping it up. The exciting thing is, to me, that and I think I shared this with you, we submitted to the state along with everybody else. And I sat in a meeting with several superintendents about 2 months ago, and they were flipping through, truthfully, 4 or 5 pages of feedback. And there's nothing wrong with feedback. I like feedback. We had 2 little blurbs to fix. And one of them was make sure that it says that everybody's evaluated with somebody with an 092 certificate or an 093. That's how granular their feedback was. So for our group to be as comprehensive and thoughtful as they were, I think, is a credit, again, to a very high-functioning system here. So the state approved it. So we just need to have somewhere in our Board of Education minutes that the board had the opportunity to talk about it and adopt it. Yeah.
So I will move that we adopt the educator evaluation and professional learning plan as submitted and approved by the Connecticut State Department of Education. Do we have a second? Karen? And is there any discussion on the motion? My comment is congratulations. It's a lot of work and well done.
It's not done. Just to be clear, now we have to help everybody understand and feel supported. And even the administrators. We're starting our goal-setting meetings. We're like, okay, we're using the new rubric and the new standards. And it is a lot of work for our teachers to have to do and think about and receive support in. It's good, and it should be streamlined, I think, a little bit on more frequent opportunities for quick visits and feedback, but it's a lot for teachers. It is.
Yeah. Every time it changes, it's a lot for teachers. So, and I know they'll get the support that they need, so. All right, so we have a motion. I made the motion, Aaron seconded it. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. That is a unanimous vote. Thank you. And good luck. Next is Mr. Sapia, who is going to present on SBAC.
Opportunity to the cafeteria. I think it's a hot topic, right? But I was able to watch a lot of the grade levels come in today, and they were like psyched. I was like, I need to be in the cafeteria today because they are going to be just ecstatic all over the place, and their faces were amazing. So kudos for finding them. It turned out incredible. So thank you all again for the opportunity year 4 that I get to highlight the amazing work that is happening in our building around that one data point that Vonda discussed, our SBAC testing. So I'm just beyond proud and thrilled to be presenting for you all today. So I'm going to just kind of jump right in here. Some of these next few slides that you are going to see are slides that we've gone over kind of year after year. I do think it's important to just kind of revisit sort of the basics prior to taking a little bit of a deep dive into the data. So these, foundational points here, the SMART balance is assessed from grades 3 to 8 in literacy and mathematics. The NGSS is for grade 5 students. It does accurately describe student achievement and growth, and we are going to be taking a little bit of a closer look into that growth piece as well as the achievement. Provides an annual snapshot of student achievement aligned to the Common Core standards and utilizes computer adaptive testing, and it does include one math performance task. Again, this information here is information that you've heard over prior years. The way that the achievement levels are set up, it is level 1 through level 4. Level 1 does not meet the achievement standard. Level 2 is approaching the achievement standard. Level 3 meets the achievement standard. And level 4 exceeds the achievement standard. So if we break that down a little bit more, it does specify the knowledge and skills at a certain level, but they are less precise than the scale of scores, which we're going to go over in the next slide, and it's going to be kind of weaved in, especially as we get into the growth piece that Vonda was alluding to. And this is the last component. It's categorizing a student's achievement solely in terms of a level is an oversimplification. Now, here's the range for the average vertical scale scores. So, for example, I'm going to point out in, let's say, grade 3. Let's say a student is at a level 2, let's say 2390. That's a little bit on the lower end of a level 2, as opposed to a student who might have, 2430, which is that higher end of a level 2. And again, I'm continuously bringing that up because being able to categorize, like the levels have a wide range, but there is kind of a low range and a high range to those specific levels, but they give a more targeted, pinpointed view into the student achievement piece. This slide here, I'm just going to allow you a minute to just kind of read through it as I'm talking, but I just really kind of want to focus on the areas of knowledge and skills measured around English language arts. So we have the reading, the writing, the listening, and the research. On the right side, we have statements about student learning from which the assessment was built. So you'll see the correlation between the areas of knowledge and the statement about student learning in which the assessment was built around, and we'll revisit a slide around the background information around mathematics as well. Now the achievement data. So if we are looking at the Smarter Balance assessments from 23-24, what we are looking at here is the achievement for students at a level 3 or 4. Level 3 meeting the standard, and level 4 exceeding it. So grade 3, with a combination of 3 and 4, was 71.8%. Now, if we take a little bit of a deeper look, we're looking at 50.4% were a level 4, and 21.4% were a level 3. Grade 4 is 81.8%. Again, students at a 3 or 4, with 53.6% at a level 4 and 28.2% at a level 3. Grade 5, 80.3% at a level 3 and 4, with 61.5% at a level 4 and 18.8% at a level 3. And last but not least, in literacy, grade 6, 90.8%, with 54.2% of those students at a level 4 and 36.6% at a level 3. Now we can take a look at that, and it's pretty clear that we have many students who are at a level 4, who are exceeding the grade level standards, again, on this one data point. This is to be celebrated. Background information around mathematics, again, very similar to the English language arts slide. I'm just going to go through the areas of knowledge and skills covered. So we have the concepts and procedures, problem solving, communicating reasoning, and the modeling and the data analysis. And again, similar to what I stated for the English language arts, we have this statement about student learning in which the assessment was built. Our 2023-2024 mathematic achievements scores, 79.5% for students who are at level 3 and 4, with 49.6% at a level 4 and 29.9% at a level 3. Grade 4, 78.9%, levels 3 and 4, with 43.1% at a level 4 and 35.8% at a level 3. Grade 5, 74.4% with 56.4% at a level 4 and 17.9% at a level 3. Of course, last but not least, we have grade 6 at 84.7% for levels 3 and 4 and 67.2% of students with a level 4 and 17.6% at a level 3. So again, looking at this data, you can see, we have a high number of students who are operating at a level 4 in terms of mathematics scores for SBA. NGSS Science, which I alluded to earlier, is given in grade 5. So we have 79.5%, again, at levels 3 and 4, with 35% scoring a level 4 and 44.4% scoring at a level 3 in the NGSS data. Now, we were just looking at achievement data. What we're going to take a closer look at here is this rough cohort data. So what I mean by rough cohort is we are following the same group of students over a trajectory of years. Now, some students move in, some students move out, but it's roughly the same amount of students that we follow year to year. So if we look at, for example, and you can obviously take a look at this as I'm going, year 21-22 for grade 3, that cohort was 73.4%. Grade 4, they went up to 84.6%. And grade 5, there was a slight dip to 80.3%. In 2022, if we look at grade 3, we had 75.5%. Then when they went to grade 4, we're looking at 81.8%. Grade 4, 21-22, 79.1%, up to 84.4%, up to 90.8%. And then we have grade 5 and 21-22 at 83.5%, and then a slight dip in grade 6 from 22 to 23. Now, I do want to draw your attention to the average vertical scale scores on the right side. That data indicates, if we look at the yellow, if we follow those rough cohorts, 2487 to 2539, and then you can follow the colors and kind of go at the diagonal, but there's a consistent increase in the average vertical scaled score. Now, the range for the average vertical scaled score is larger. So some students might increase in their vertical scaled score because of the large range, but they may not necessarily move forward in their level because the range of the vertical scaled score is more. The same for mathematics. If I start at grade 3 in 21-22, we have 79.8% up to 87.2%, and then we have a dip to 74.4%. This is an opportunity to really think about data as using a flashlight, to illuminate areas in which we need to identify why there was that decrease. And I want to give a public shout out to our math specialists, Maureen Proud and Carson Echeverry. We worked collaboratively on this, and we identified the one area in which that drop occurred. Oops, sorry, change the slide. So we're already looking at that information. Because again, this is the information that we need to then best support our students and teachers. The rest of the strands on the SBAC were at proficiency or above, except for this one part, which has already been identified. Again, you can look at, let's say grade 4, 21, 22, 80.6, then 22, 23, 82.8, and 23, 24 to 84.7. So you can see there that, we do have increases besides that grade 4 to 5 drop across the board in the percentages, and also in our average vertical scale score. So there is, that progress and that growth. Our DIRG information. We are in DIRG B, as you all know. So in DIRG B, we were number 1 for English language arts at 81.5%. We had a slight drop in mathematics to 79.5%. And Madison obviously was number 1 at 80.3. Now, there is approximately, I believe, 138 districts in the state of Connecticut, around there. In terms of where we fall in the state, we are number 3 in the state of Connecticut for English language arts. We are number 5 in the state of Connecticut for mathematics. I just want to take a second to publicly acknowledge the teachers, the students, the staff. One of the amazing opportunities in my role is the opportunity to have this overarching perspective of the building. And when I sit here and tell you the work, the commitment, the dedication, the analytical thought process that I get to observe and work with and help them lead and learn from them is second to none. And I would be completely remiss if I did not take a moment to celebrate all the hard work that happens in this building on a day-to-day basis. We are not perfect. It is progress over perfection. But the team here is second to none. Now I want to take a look at growth versus achievement. And I know there's a lot of information coming at you and a lot of data coming at you. So this is really kind of an overarching presentation and understanding for you. So the achievement piece is that one-time snapshot in a measurement of a student's academic performance. The growth piece, this is the change in achievement score for the same student between 2 or more points in time. So the next few slides are going to go over this in some greater detail. Tons of information on here. This chart was pulled directly from the state of Connecticut. This was released in 2016, and the state has created a formula. It's a very complex formula. It is available online. I cannot speak to it, but it is available, about how they determine the specific growth targets. So for example, you will see that that yellow is highlighted. That is a level 1. They are in sort of the high range for a vertical scale score. So let's say, for example, we have a student that's 2350 for grade 3. Their growth goal is expected to be 71 points by the end of the next year, which would put them at a new vertical scale score of 2421. So if you look there, that would be at the level 2 approaching. So that student, if they scored 71 points according to their vertical scale score, they would have achieved their growth target goal. That is individualized for the student. This is important information as I get to the next few slides. Same process here in terms of the math achievement level ranges and growth targets. You'll see again, the state has a very, very fancy formula for this. But we obviously want kids to continuously grow, and we want to take a deeper look at these growth targets. This hypothetical example was pulled directly from the state website. So there's 4 students. In blue on the bar graphs, that is their target growth according to their vertical scale score. Again, this is a hypothetical. So student 1, 2, 3, and 4 all have a growth target of 60 points. Again, a growth target is individualized for the student. So student 1, although they didn't meet their 60-point growth target, grew by 42 points for their vertical scale score. Student 2 met their growth target, they grew 60 points. Student 3 exceeded their growth target for 66 points, and student 4 grew 36 points, but didn't quite meet their growth target. Now I tell you this because when we look at the average percentage of target achieved, that is all 4 of those scores in red, and it's an average. Okay? So growth is individualized for the student. The average percent of target achieved, it's just that, the average percentage of all of the students. Okay. So I pulled some data off of EdSite. So we have 22 and 23, for example. We have 353 students. 61.2% of those students met their growth rate in English language arts, while 79% had the average percentage of target achieved. For math, out of 354 students, 64.7% of those students met their individual growth rate. Our average was 82.7%. And for the 22-23 school year, again, we have 342 students. 57.3% of them met their growth rate, and 73.9% for their average percentage of target achieved. And the math piece, 341 students, 59.2% of those students met their growth rate, with the average percent of target achieved, 78.6%. One more slide of data. We took it a step further and broke it down, and this is for the 23-24 students, okay? For the 23-24 students. So I broke it down by specific grade level. So for grade 4 in ELA, the number of students was 104, so 61.5% of those students, which is approximately 64 students, met their growth rate. For their average percent of target achieved, 80.8. In mathematics, 103 students took the assessment, 50.5 achieved their growth rate, which is approximately 52 students, for an average percent of target achieved at 78.7%. For grade 5, 113 students took the ELA assessment, 57.5% achieved their growth rate. For the average percent of target achieved, 74.2%, which is approximately 65 students. And 113 students for math took the assessment, 55.8, met their growth rate, and that's approximately 63 students. And for grade 6, 125 students took the assessment, 53.6% achieved their growth rate, which is approximately 67 students, with an average percentage of 67.9 of the target achieved. And then for math, the number of math students was 125, and 69.6% met their growth rate, which is approximately 87 students with 84.0 achieving their average percentage of target achieved. So I'm going to take a breath. Because again, I know that that's a lot of information and a lot of data that you had to listen to review, kind of synthesize, follow up. We have the data, we have the information, now what? Grade level analysis of SBA data by homeroom and former students. This data is compiled by the administrative team before school begins. Once the data is released, it's given out to the specific classroom teachers for their exiting students and their incoming students. So they have that at the beginning of the school year. We have continued ongoing professional learning and curriculum review and development. That's just a perpetual cycle, right? It's progress over perfection, right? We have our progress monitoring using STAR, DIBELS, classroom assessments. We have the feedback and coaching within the classroom in the PLC meetings. We have the earlier implementation of interim assessment blocks administered at grade levels. And IABs are basically it's a way it's built into the testing system where students are given exposure to the interface of what it looks like when they take the Smarter Balance, but it also can be a very, very focused area depending on what the grade level teachers are studying. For example, in grade 5, if they're working on volume, they can pull focused IABs out of the system and use those as another resource for their curriculum. And also, when the teachers administer the IABs, it does give that data back to the teachers, which they then obviously can use to drive next steps. We've started administrative review of teacher longitudinal data to look for trends, to drive steps around instructional strategies to support teacher growth. And last but not least, I think we're all in agreement, right, that this is amazing. I'm so proud, but we can't forget, like Vonda said, about the whole child, right? This is one data point, but what's powerful about this community is that focus, not only on the academic piece, but the social emotional piece for our kids and the ecosystem that's created on a day in and day out basis for our students. Questions?
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Who has a question or mayor or a comment to make? Anyone? Go ahead, Jay. We'll start with you and we'll go around.
Jenny, so I see in grade 3, 4, 5, you've got about 80% of the students. What I care about is the 20% get full time. And that's 1 in 5 or 1 in 4 in some grades. What are we seeing with respect to the time trend in growth? Do we see a movement from that set of students also? I might understand why you might not afford it, because in some grades it might be small and difficult. This is 20%, so when I'm taking a look at each grade, and I'm taking a look at the entire number, that's a sizable number. So it'd be great to see a similar trend, to see what we're doing for that grade. Those that don't actually leave are in grades 1 or 2, level 1 and 2, to see what we're doing to help them move on to a higher score within that grade, to see what their targets are, and then help support the teachers in that, as well as, identify these issues with parents too, so that we can have a community effort on the whole child. Does that make sense?
It does, and I'll make note of that piece. I think, as a potential next step, as we take a deeper dive looking into that growth data, I think that's going to be really valuable information. Again, as a potential next step, that we'll be able to kind of, really take a look at that extracted data to see what that specific growth was, and if they made their growth target.
If I,
It's my
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, right.
so if I may, I did start to pull that data to see if, because we all collaboratively worked on this a little bit, because you can go into EdSite and you can sort out, and there's a population tag of high needs, which includes free and reduced lunch and language supports, right? So you can actually spin it out. So it says, here's how your high needs population grew, and here's how your non-high needs population grew. And I do see some really strong high needs population growth. It is something that I wanted to talk to the team about, because in some grade levels, it's difficult to report it based on the numbers of students. So it's tricky, but I can assure you that I've run those reports. It's just filters, and you can see them at EdSite too. You can do the same thing. I hesitate to have, I'm even looking at updating the chart that I think Erin Williamson had suggested we put on the website last year, and I started to add that in there. And because I can't add it consistently for each grade level, I don't think I'm going to, because it starts to become identifiable. But we are watching it. And, I can certainly have us share some broad observations with that. But that is something you can navigate as well. Anybody can. That's a good question.
Laura, do you have any questions, comments?
No, I talked about it in curriculum review, and things I said they're still low. It's really impressive to see everything that's going on. It'll be interesting to see as we have some new literacy and math curriculum and programs come through. I'm not sure what it's going to look like, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in some of this data next year.
Erin?
Super impressive. This is awesome. I love that you guys dug down, especially in the one where there was the dip to even figure out why it was and what you're doing. I love that you're using data to make decisions and change, and I think it's awesome. One question would be, is there, and this like AI or an algorithm or something that can tell you if there's something happening on an individual kid level where it's like, ooh, something is off, we should take a look at this kiddo. Like if there's a significant drop for individual kids, I'm just wondering, because it might be indicative of something else.
There isn't an AI piece, it's a II.
It's a digging
two Is.
into
Yes,
those
and-
growth reports.
Yes, it is. And now the good news is, again, due to another board member, due to Lauren's suggestion, this data has started and will continue to follow the children through Power School, so parents can also see it. So they'll be able to see what we see in terms of how did you do last year, how did you do this year, starting in 3rd grade, and it will follow them even after they leave us, which is nice. But that would be the teacher level work that the administrators are doing. They're very focused this year on looking at different types of data with our teachers to really try to figure out, again, knowing your impact, looking to see what you're doing, looking to see if it's working or not, making changes and celebrating what's working. But we have not lost sight, and we will not lose sight of the fact that we're not there yet.
Yeah, and I partly asked because of what happened with my own child, right? Where there was that dip, it was surprising. And I don't think we ever figured out why or what. But I do think that those type of, being able to identify those when we do have that and figure out like, is that a child where they were on a path and something happened? Or some, I just think if we can get to that point, it'd be awesome.
And they do triangulate this with a lot of other data points, so it is easier to look at this data point if there is a dip and say, well, they probably didn't lose everything that they knew.
Right.
What do their STAR data points look like? What do their classroom assessments look like to see? And you triangulate that information to see, is it a motivational drop? Can you link it back to, I lost my cat, Truthfully, those things impact. These are elementary children. Yeah.
Sarah Beth, anything?
Just one question. I can't remember, these schools, this is only their 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, or this is their, some of them have their
older students in there?
Some of them are 3, 5. I don't know how many go through.
It really
6.
depends, right?
Yeah.
So some of them go up to 8. But we did, yeah, it would be hand calculations to pick Cheshire and then pick their elementary schools out and get that data. Yeah, and the state doesn't make it easy to do that because they don't want you doing this. They want you comparing you to yourself. So they don't want us to really. But we look.
And the community looks. So, let's not overlook that. Sorry, Jimmy.
But you can see our regional names.
That's all right.
You can see
Yeah,
them both.
well, I was curious about Bethany because they're not.
He's not.
They're not there.
They're not there.
They're in Dirt C.
But regional
Yeah.
district 5 is, so you can
Yeah,
kind of
Zach
get a
Orange
sense
is
of.
there too. Yeah.
I did send you a different look. I just came across it. I sent it to the board this afternoon. You can see every district and where they are.
Yeah, just
I'm sorry, were you sad?
It's done. Yeah, thank you.
So, Jimmy, I just wanted to start off by saying, as someone who talks about data himself, you did a great job, because particularly those ladder charts I was looking at before, and I was like, what in the world is this telling me? So, very nicely done. Yeah, and really, as you've acknowledged, I think it probably was acknowledged in the curriculum committee, like, kudos to our educators, kudos to everyone here who's supporting our kids every day. Like, this is incredible. You know, and it's incredible both in terms of what they're doing in the classroom and the care that's being taken to understand how they're progressing as learners. Like, that ain't happening in every school. That's, that's something special to us. Something that's interesting, a question I was raising before the meeting began was also about who all is included in the data. And in fact, we're including students with IEPs in these statistics. And with that, we're still seeing, roughly 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5 students either meeting or exceeding expectations for their grade level. That's pretty remarkable. Like, that's really amazing. And then the other thing, I just think this is about, what I appreciate about your presentation and appreciate about how the data are being used is it's about the learners. It's about ultimately getting to individual growth and supporting each whole child as unique individuals. Like, hooray, if only every school had what we have here.
I would agree.
Well done, well said. I assume you're sad.
I'm done.
Jeff?
No, this is excellent. Great job presenting the data. I mean, it's where we want to be, so thank you. Hard work. And it's more everything that's involved. So nice work.
Yeah, thanks, Jimmy. This is a great presentation. Very proud of this school and school district for being able to achieve what we've been able to achieve. And I really appreciate you giving some attention to the growth statistics. I think that's something we haven't looked at before, something we requested, and glad that you provided those data. And I think those data are important because, at least from my perspective, that really gets at the heart of what we're trying to do as a school. I think that, and Vonda spoke to this a little bit in the curriculum committee meeting, that I think the expectation should be for every child to experience 1 year of academic growth. And so when I think about these numbers, like, I want to give more attention to the growth statistics than I want to give to the levels, because I want to see, okay, how much growth are these kids experiencing? And it's helpful that the state has established targets for that, so we can see the percentage of kids who are reaching that target and the overall percentage of growth relative to that target we're experiencing as a school. So I just really appreciate you giving some time and attention to that. One thing I did look at site as well, and one of the things I noticed in terms of growth is that if you were to look at growth over time, I think that's something that would be helpful to look at as well in future presentations, how we So not only just how we look at how levels look like over time, but levels look like over time, but what growth looks like over each academic year as well. And so when I look at it that way, it looks, for the most part, pretty stable, but we do have a little bit of a drop in growth for the 23-24 school year compared to the 22-23 school year. So in ELA, for example, is 79 for the average percentage of target achieved. So the how much of the target on average our students have achieved was 79% for 22-23 and about 74 for 23-24. So 79 versus 74 for the last year. Not a huge drop, but a drop. And the same occurs for math. 22-23, 83%, 23-24, 79%. So, that's just one time point, one difference. And so I think that's something that we should continue to monitor over the years as well, because I think we want to, at the very least, these are impressive growth scores, I think. So at the very least, we want to be able to maintain that, if not, increase over time. But see a little bit of a drop there, at least comparing those 2 years. And if you were to go back even farther, it's lower than some of the earlier years as well. So I would like us to continue to give attention to growth in that regard. And then the question I had was, you mentioned for math that you were able to isolate a strand of math that was contributing to that drop. Could you say more about that?
So the specific strand that was identified, let me go back to my notes here, for 1 second, it was converting like measurement units within given measurement system. So for example, converting 5 centimeters to 0.05 millimeters, but then incorporating it into multi-step word problems.
Okay.
So you have the conversion piece, but then you have the word problem piece where some of those conversions might be embedded.
Okay.
So that was the specific area.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And do we have thoughts about what was contributing to that? Was that something that we felt like we could?
No, I think that's going to be part of the next step of the conversations. Because again, it's like going back to my comment before about like using data as a flashlight.
Yeah.
And now we have to look at, was it the conversion piece? Was it the word problem piece? So we have to take a little bit of a deeper look and then, look at some resources, that can also help kind of support in that area too. And then, like Vonda was saying, those are like the classroom assessment exit slip pieces that we can look at to really sort of break down where the students are falling short.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So the other thing that I really appreciated was that you gave me some time speaking about how the data are being used, because this is a one-time, one-shot deal. I think a common complaint about the SBAC is that you don't get it until next year, and what are you supposed to do with it then? So I'm glad to see that there are opportunities, and we're actually taking advantage of those opportunities to use that to strengthen instruction. So thanks for commenting on that too.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. You're going to add something?
Just about growth, yes, yep. So just about the growth, the state deliberately broke the growth graph during COVID. They snapped it and disengaged it. They didn't want us measuring any growth from prior to COVID to after COVID, which was interesting.
Right. So they don't have the 19.
They do not.
They don't have the 19 school year.
They do not, because they didn't want us
Right.
using that data in any way, and have cautioned us that as we look at the data now, one small piece is what grade were these children in then, right? So we think about that. Okay, what grade were these 5th graders in during COVID, and what might they perhaps have missed? So that's one piece.
Yeah.
We also noticed the dip immediately, while the results were still embargoed. We were like, what are we doing this?
Yeah.
And, again, not making excuses, there's a lot of things that we need to think about in terms of where do the children come from, what gaps might they have had, what are our materials, but also how has our population shifted? Like those are all things that impact those rates.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. I think what I would have expected to see would be the dips in the 2021-22 school year in terms of growth compared to the 19, I don't know what they're comparing that to. Maybe that's to the 18-19 year, since they don't have the 19-20 year represented. But I guess I would expect that to have been lower, like when kids were coming back. When the pandemic had largely been, mitigated. And so I would expect it to either be there or even the 2022-23 school year. But it's interesting that it's in the 2023-4 school year that we're seeing lower growth. And I don't really know what to make of that.
We don't necessarily either, but when we spit it out by high needs and non-high needs, it gives us a little bit of additional information. We have almost double that population. There's a lot of reasons that we need to consider, and we can't exclude the ones that are at our fingertips, the curriculum that we can impact, the instructional strategies that we can impact. Yeah. It's interesting.
I had a quick question on the timing. One of the things, Jimmy, exactly what you said, that you were using some of the data to sort of give feedback to math and ELA instructors and the specialists. But what's the timing of this? So when does the information on the child actually get to the school so they could use that information?
That information, right, so we finish in late May. That information is often almost completely back to us by June, by the end of June. But it's embargoed, which means they're still tweaking it and holding that little caveat, so we can't publish it to anybody, but we have the ability to re-roster those kids so that when the teachers walk in the door, they'll have access to their old kids and their new kids' data. Day one.
So I was just thinking about what both of you said. So one of the things is a trigger or a mechanism by which we can catch a variance. At the same time, look at the growth over time. And that would give us some variance that we could sort of highlight and say there's a red flag there, definitely something has changed within that year. Let's ask that question coming into school. So that would be the first
Absolutely.
a mechanism that you might use as a trigger. Does that make sense?
Yep. And that's the culture that the team is really working hard this year and next into really developing with our staff and supporting them with how to really look at something like this, not as a one-shot deal, but as one of many instructional tools. And once you can use that understanding, you can apply it to any informal or formal assessment that you do.
Like everyone said, this is really, really good. Excellent. And you're right, the growth is what I've always wanted to look at. But this looks pretty good. There are some quirks. I think that's normal. I think the quirks are normal. I think you'll see cohorts change, and I think the population, as you mentioned, changes. And the needs change over time as well. And I think they drive these results back and forth.
Yeah. And it's hard to, again, that dip in last year could just be, it could be a result of quirkiness in the data. That's why I think it's good for us to keep monitoring and see what happens next year. Does the trend continue to go down? Does it come back up? Even out.
It would be good to get some narrative on those first two levels, so not these scores, but some narrative.
Yeah, I can, yep.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
To try and explain what's going on there.
Yep. And I can definitely say that we appreciate your appreciation of our geekiness.
Okay, thank you. And I'll just wrap up this conversation by, again, thanking you, Jimmy and Cheryl. Lisa, I know you've had a part in this. I know Carrie's looked at these things. Vonda. So appreciate all of that work. And Stephen spoke so articulately about thanking the staff. But I just want, people out there watching to know that it starts in sometimes pre-K here. And so we see the results in 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, but it's really everyone working together. And so kudos to everyone who has a part in that. So it is very much appreciated by the board, clearly. Thank you. Beecher Road School update. Ms. Sherman.
I'm going to take a page out of Jimmy's book and stand right here. Okay, so good evening. I just have a few quick updates, and then part of my updates I am going to talk a little bit about coding and technology at Beecher, because I know that was a question that was brought up. So I want to start by talking about our literacy walks. We did in order to support our new literacy program, and as part of our literacy plan that we did submit at the end of last year after our completion of the masterclass that we attended, we did initiate our literacy walks. So members of the administration and members of our literacy team visited students in grades K through 2 to observe the work that they're doing in their classrooms. And then after that, we had meetings with the grade level teachers to debrief and talk about the literacy walks and the friendly visits that we did. And we had some really powerful conversations about next steps and the focus that we wanted to continue to work on as we continue to implement and unroll our HMH into reading program. Quick grade 1 update. The position was posted already. It was posted very quickly after the last Board of Education meeting. An interview committee was formed, and it did consist of a number of different staff members across section of our community. And we already did our first round of interviews. We have our candidates returning shortly to come and do a performance task, which is also typically part of our process. And teachers are also working collaboratively to build a classroom community of students who will form this new grade 1 classroom. And I've also been communicating regularly with parents about the process, so they're aware of where we are and how things are going. I did share in a recent principal's message a document that we made recently about the chain of command here at Beecher Road School. We're really working, yes. Oh, thanks, Wanda. Wanda was like, look, it's right here. It is posted on our website. Jimmy and Shar worked really hard to create it. And, we just are really trying to encourage a chain of command to ensure that people get to the right person to address their concerns in a more timely manner. This sort of falls under our communication umbrella that we continue to work on. And we're just continuing to make sure that people know who to go to for different areas of topics. Last year, we did send out a parent communication survey in the spring, and we are very excited to announce that we will be sending out another one very, very soon. One of the immediate turnarounds from that survey was Class Dojo. That's one of many things that we implemented after the results of that survey were received. So we are going to be sending out another survey very soon and continue to gather that information from our parent community about ways that we can keep growing and changing and learning as a leadership team and as a school community. The Halloween Hoot is coming soon. I know Wanda mentioned it already when she shared about her visit. It is coming up this weekend. I know the auction went live. Last year, Jimmy and I had a healthy competition over who would raise more money. I think he beat me out by not by much.
Sure did.
It was not by much. It was not by much. This year I would like to beat him out. But make sure that you definitely attend if you are able. It is, as you know, a super fun Beecher tradition. Coding. I'm going to go into coding here at Beecher Road School. So before I begin, I do want to just remind the board and the parent community that we are an Apple Distinguished School. This is a 3-year distinction. I know last year we had like our big celebration and there was confetti cannons and it seems like it was like done, but it's actually a 3-year distinction. And I was looking back at some of the Apple Distinguished School information, and it says that Apple Distinguished Schools are centers of innovation, leadership, and educational excellence. They use Apple technology to inspire, imagine, and impact teaching and learning school-wide. And now I know that's not directly about coding. It is about sort of our philosophy and belief around technology education here at Beecher. It is not just a technology class. It is imbued throughout the entire day here at Beecher Road School. And I think that that's really important that we highlight because we really do integrate it across the entire day. But I am going to talk specifically at coding because I know that was a question. And people, when they ask me about coding, I tell them all the time that we start in kindergarten, and I'm truly not joking. We start beginning coding at the kindergarten level, and a lot of this is directional based, but they are working with coding devices that are at a developmentally appropriate level, and they're talking about some coding fundamentals that you can see listed there. And we love pictures. You know I love pictures, so we have pictures on all the slideshows. In first grade, they start using these, I love these things, they're called B-Bots. And they also start using Codable and Scratch Junior. Now the B-Bots, when I talk about integrating it throughout the day, the first grade teachers will actually take those into the classroom and they'll put like the kids' sight words on those mats that you see, and they'll have the kids code the B-Bot to get to a specific sight word. Like they'll say, you know, get your B-Bot to move to this sight word. So that's a way that they are sort of bringing this into the classroom and integrating coding and, you know, vocabulary and sight words right into their classroom. That's just one example. But they also continue to reinforce key concepts, and they begin Scratch Junior, which is this picture down at the bottom here. In second grade, we continue to build on Scratch Junior, and they also move into Codable even more. Codable, if your kids have ever come home talking about like the fuzzy, they look like little fuzzy bugs, and they're adorable. I still remember my child coming home talking about the fuzzy bugs, and I was like, what are you talking about, fuzzy bugs and technology? But they're referring to Codable. There's kind of an example of one there, actually. So Codable, they continue, and they actually start learning some JavaScript. So it's hard to see the screen, but if the screen does say like function, and then add this, and they have to sort of work through some of those coding concepts. In third grade, we're getting a little bit more complicated. This is really fun to watch them do this, to watch them do Scratch, because you can just, you know, see them typing in their code and then testing it out and being like, oh, like, you know, because they have to turn something around or move something. But they are getting into more complicated coding where they are actually applying their code into a completed project. In that case, you can see it's like a little Pac-Man looking game. And they share their work too. They have the opportunity to have a gallery walk, which is really just an opportunity to go and look at all of the coding that their classmates have done. And then they're also doing, they do an hour of code. That's something else they introduced in third grade. And then they also do robotics. So at the bottom, you'll see that picture where those crazy tape, you'll start to see crazy tape mazes all over the floor in the library and in the tech lab. And the kiddos, you can see, are sitting around the floor. And a lot of times they'll have either younger kids or older kids build those mazes for the other students to do, and they have to code those robots to get through that maze. And usually they work in partners. It's really collaborative, actually. Fourth grade, we're getting a little bit more advanced with our coding, more block-based coding. They're doing more game creation. They're using Ozobots. We get into Ozobots a lot in fourth grade. And then the dash and dot, which is the one that you're looking at. And they're getting more text-based now. Fifth grade, I mean, you can see the switch from what it looks like back in the younger grades to what it is up there. Again, they get into Q and dash and dot, which are more advanced robotics. They're getting into code.org. So they're really building on the skills that they've learned across all the different grade levels and getting into some more advanced coding. Now, sixth grade, we do start to transition a little bit. They're still working on coding, but I will say in sixth grade there is a big shift because we really have to talk to the kiddos in sixth grade. They're starting to get into social media. They're starting to get into Discord, group chats. So there's a lot of conversation in sixth grade around digital citizenship. They're also talking about passwords and password protections. So your kiddos will learn all about those things in 6th grade. But they also do work if it's a special or not a special. The technology teachers work really collaboratively with the 6th grade team. So the hour of code is something that still happens. They still have tech days where the teachers come in and work in the technology lab. They also a lot of things happen organically. And I think that I gave this example in the past, but I'm going to share it again because I think it was so powerful, where we had an ILA teacher in 6th grade work with the technology team to have the students identify an object that was important to a text that they were reading and then 3D print it. So, and that just happened organically. That wasn't written into a curriculum, but it was a project that she said, this is what I want to do, how can I get this to happen? And they worked together. And those opportunities happen all the time, not just in 6th grade, honestly, across all of the grade levels. That's how the 1st grade Bebot coding happened with the sight words. It was a 1st grade teacher being like, the kids love this Bebot, I really want to get this into my classroom, how can I do that? And they work together. And that's the power of our PLCs, honestly. But they do a lot in 6th grade of having the kiddos do some coding and do some robotic, but also shifting their focus a little bit into digital citizenship. That's the end of my coding. Does anyone have a question about that before I move into the last part? Wait, I want to do the last part of my presentation. Just kidding. Hold on, please. Because the last part of my presentation is the best part. I am so excited to introduce to you Timber, who is our cute little owl right there. Lots of meetings, like Vonda said, came to fruition over this past weekend. Timber, and these pictures don't do it justice, but I promise that we're going to figure out a way to celebrate this. It's not all the way finished, so when it's all the way finished, we're going to find a way to celebrate it. But Timber has a beautiful tree house in the cafeteria. I'm going to show you a few more pictures. That's when the kids come out of the serving line, that's to the left. I'm going to give you some close-ups in a second. That's the whole wall. It's amazing. There's a close-up. That was where we started, like the very beginning of our meetings. That was like the very first tree we saw and the very first picture of Timber. We had conversations about what his head should look like. So he should be tilted. We have our expectations for the cafeteria on signposts. I had to put him in there. He's my second favorite after Timber. I just think the squirrel is just the cutest thing ever. And there's some bees. We also try to incorporate a lot of nature. So we have like the blueberries that you find in the Mad Gardens are up on there. We have a lot of the animals. They asked us for what other animals do you want? And we listed all the animals that we see at Beecher, and you'll find them all somewhere in this big mural. Also, throughout the cafeteria, we have Timber saying various things like be healthy and be kind, which is also beautiful. And then in the kitchen, these are 2 pictures taken in the kitchen serving line. There's more, but there's a bunch of Timbers peeking around the corners, and we have this big, beautiful seal also on one of the kitchen walls. And the thing that I think I'm probably most proud of is that we made a signpost. And we were talking about what can go on the signpost. And originally, the people that we were working with, were talking about like, why don't you have like directions, like, this way to
PE.
and I was like, well, let's do something else.
2 of everything, yeah.
I was like, well, that's tricky. So we went with Be Kind, because that is something that is obviously important to us as a community. And then we decided that we needed to list it in all the different languages. And so what we actually did is we looked back at the languages that are the most spoken at Beecher. So we looked at our list of MLL students and the top languages at Beecher, and we wrote Be Kind in all of those different languages. So it's English, Spanish, Turkish, Korean, Hebrew, Urdu, Russian, and Albanian are the top languages at Beecher. So that is Be Kind in all of those different languages. That's the thing I love the most, I think, besides the squirrel and Timber. Okay, that is the end. Any questions? I'm going to just leave it there.
Okay. First of all, that is amazing.
It's amazing. It's even better in person, really, truly.
Can't wait to see it. Questions or comments? We'll start this one this time.
Yeah, thanks for that great presentation, Lisa. Especially the presentation around the coding. I just wanted to have a better understanding about what subjects, what classrooms are they actually engaging in these coding activities? So like during what classes?
Technology.
Oh, so it is,
Yep.
so it's during technology. So in 6th grade, then it's
Right,
happening.
so in 6th grade it's different because technology is not typically a special, and it has not been for many, many years. So in 6th grade, it's more built into the classroom when they sign up for technology lab time. So the technology lab is free in the morning when all of the teachers have, all of the 6th grade teachers have ILA time. So that's when those lessons that I referenced in 6th grade will happen, where they'll create a schedule, like a more flexible schedule, where they'll create a schedule where some of the teachers will sign up, and not some of them, they'll sign up and they'll go into the technology lab, or Ms. Charleglia or Ms. Robinson will go into their classrooms, or like the organic stuff that I was talking about. That happens when technology teachers meet pretty regularly with grade level PLCs. So then sometimes it'll turn into a, hey, I want to do this ILA project, and then they'll go and do it in the technology lab.
Okay.
So it's kind of a blend of like planned, like we're going to do the hour of code versus flexible, organic. I want to do this project. Can I sign up for time in the tech lab? I'm going to go to the tech lab during this unit of study and do this work.
Okay. All right. So yeah, the reason why I asked that, especially with regard to 6th grade, is because, as you know, we've had some parents express concerns about that, about whether, I think that the concern has to do with whether us no longer having the technology class in 6th grade means a loss of some content knowledge they would be getting in 6th grade. And so, and I think what you're saying is that it's integrated now. We don't have a dedicated class for it, but it's integrated into instruction. And so is your assessment that there's no loss in content that's being taught in 6th grade with this integrated approach, or are we having to give up something without having this dedicated class time?
Yeah, so just a reminder, we only had a dedicated, so in the 10 years that I've been here,
Yeah.
that only happened 1 year.
Right.
They had a dedicated technology special, 30 minutes, once every 6-day cycle for 1 year only.
Right.
So everything that I just described to you happened and is happening before and after that time. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I would say, I mean, is it different not having a dedicated time? Of course it is. Is there significant loss in what is being taught? I would say that the technology teachers and the 6th grade teachers work really collaboratively to ensure that there are some assured experiences across all grade levels. Like the hour of code happens starting in, what did I say, 3rd grade? And that happens every year, 3rd through 6th. So there's an assured experience regardless of whether or not it's a special or not. And then I think that there are some things, as curriculum changes or as teams change or as new units change, that the teachers will integrate technology into their units. So it might look different from year to year. Like what a 6th grader is doing this year might be different than what a 6th grader does next year. That doesn't mean that there's a loss. That just means there's a change in thinking, or there's a new project, or there's a new unit. They're changing their book club books in 6th grade this year, so they're reading a brand new book. So is there a loss? I mean, yes, because we're not reading the book we read last year, but there's a different book that we're reading. So I guess it's tricky to say, yes, you're definitely losing. I think it's more like it's a little bit more fluid, I think, than in other grades.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything?
Nope, no further questions, just always showing improvement, so that's appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephen?
No questions, it's terrific.
No questions, thank you. I have a question. So these presentations are awesome, and we get to see them because we're on the board. And and I'm wondering if there's anywhere on the website where we can be, or just where, one of the things that I think would be helpful, or I'm hoping we're moving towards as a district, is putting curriculum on our website. And this is like a perfect example of, like, it's not, like, I don't know how you would do this because it's coding, but it's within technology.
Right. Yeah.
But then again, to your point, it's not like technology is sometimes integrated and sometimes a pullout. But I do think parents in our district are interested, and certainly the public comment has suggested, in understanding more, how is my kid learning technology at these different grade levels? So, math was last year, there was a lot of interest in math,
Yeah.
right? There's new changes in our literacy. So I'm hoping that, like, presentations like this,
Yeah.
or things like, or even like could be created into a curriculum that could be posted, so that parents who have questions about, like, what does my kid learn in science in 5th grade, could go online and see that, as opposed to, they did a presentation at the board back in like October 2023 about that. Let me go see if I can find that.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that speaks to our communication role, which is, you're hitting the nail on the head. I think that we have to just make sure that this information is visible all the time.
Right, because it's
Not
great
just
when you show it to
to-
us, but I think parents understandably are not attending these meetings.
Yeah.
And, which is not a bad thing. I think that means y'all are doing your good job, and that, they're not thinking that this is the best thing they can do with their Monday night. But I do think that it would be helpful if it was somewhere that they could easily accessible, or we could point them to it,
Yeah.
so that they could have an understanding of all the great work that you are doing. And
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to add to that? And then we'll come to you, Jen.
And then, okay,
So go
yes.
ahead.
So the technology department actually has their scope and sequence on the website. I printed it, so it's there. There are some subject areas where there's no scope and sequence, like social studies. Right, so we have areas that we need to pay attention to. So we, at the end of last year, had shared a curriculum revision cycle. And so this year, and it's actually on our cabinet agenda tomorrow to talk about, we are looking at getting the ELA units up by the end of November, understanding that they won't be complete because we're still working through the materials, but at least we can get them shaped out. We also are going to have the math topics shaped out by grade level. That curriculum itself is not up for revision until next year, because we want to align math, science, and STEAM together, because those go together. We want all those people in the same room for the same 3 or 4 days. But we absolutely agree that the parents need to be able to see at least the units and essential understandings that are being covered. So those will be refined as the curriculum is updated, but math and ELA really should be up there shortly. And we're talking about that again tomorrow. That's been our goal. We talked about that in the summer. So, but technology is there already.
And does it have this coding information?
It has everything. It actually has more than that. It's by grade level. It has a summary.
Coding is just a subset.
Right,
of what
that's a
I teach.
subset. This talks about everything each grade level is taught.
Awesome.
Yep.
Clearly, I need to go on our website then.
No, that's okay. One of our presentations that I'd like to do is to have our 2 website masters come and give the board and the community an overview of what's up there. Yeah, that's on my list.
Go ahead.
But I think
That's it.
I
As
think
it was a
that's
piggyback.
Yeah, it was a piggyback on Aaron's. So I agree with that 100%. I'm really happy to learn that that's on the website. I didn't know that. I didn't know that either. So I mean, what I was trying to do was channel some of the concerns that we heard from families and give you an opportunity to respond to it. But it's better to be able to have that information on the website, because not everyone's no one's here.
And we have to educate.
And
That's
no one's going
We
to,
educate everybody.
not many people are going to watch the videos, so it's better to have that information on the website. I'm glad that now I can then go out and say it's on the website.
Well, not every area is on the website yet.
Right.
But there are areas.
But
that-
if
yes.
you want to learn about how technology is being taught in 6th grade,
Mhm.
it's on the website.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It is under the curriculum tab.
Okay.
Yep.
Anything?
Thank you. Your presentations are always wonderful. I'm super excited about Timber.
I put him back on the screen for
It was
you.
adorable.
Because look how cute he is.
We suspect there'll be garb coming soon
Yes.
for maybe all.
Yeah.
I think I was,
Yeah, was gonna
I think
ask
that
about because I like
the,
that.
the woman, I came yesterday, because she was here yesterday, the team of people that were installing this, and I think that she's not used to Lisa level of excitement, because she kept being like, can I just video you? Because I was like, look at this! And I think she's not used to that. I was like, are you not used to people being this excited? And she was like, you're definitely a little over the top. She kept videoing me.
Yeah, it's really just a beautiful way to capture it as a community space. There's so much there.
It's amazing.
It's really
That's Donna. That's Donna.
It's really
nice.
nice.
Well done, Donna.
And I appreciate, although I wasn't the one who asked for it, the coding presentation, just disclaimer. I think there's wonderful things that are happening. I have reviewed the technology scope and sequence on the website. I also noticed that there's an absence of social studies scope and sequence. And, I think coming out of a presentation on children's test scores and standardized testing and the focus on technology, which I know is top of mind and certainly something that we all care about as part of kids' education. I do wonder about the civic learning components and how that is nestled into the broader scope and sequence of the curriculum as a whole, because it's great when kids have really good academic skills, it's great when kids can code, it's great when kids can do awesome stuff with technology, but they do have to go out into the world and engage and use those things in civic life. And so that's too big for tonight, but I said it in a curriculum meeting, and I just wanted to kind of restate it here for
Absolutely.
And to piggyback on that, I want to just tell the community that may be watching and our board members that kudos to our superintendent and her team for really looking at all of the curriculum areas and mapping out, not just this year, not just being reactive to, one thing, but looking at the whole picture and creating a schedule. Now, we know, especially with what happened with English language arts, what happened with the state, we have to be a little flexible, but this is amazing. Since I've been on the board, I have been asking for something long-term for us so that at least we have a roadmap. So I thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And thank you as well.
Does that have elective stuff too?
Yes, it has. Our early childhood, English language arts, library media, music and band,
I can resend that,
DISC,
sir.
got it
I think
all.
we shared it last June, but I can resend it.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so, Jay, anything?
I think whenever I came into that dining hall, it was dreary and it was beautiful. I think it's fantastic. The only question I had was the integration. So we're looking at coding here, and when I see coding today, it's integrated into almost everything. And so one of the questions I wanted to sort of tease out was how are we meeting that need that our citizens, who would like to be global, how are we meeting that expectation? And so I noticed STEAM being mentioned, I noticed math being mentioned, but it was great that you mentioned the literacy there for a minute and said we're using it in learning our side words.
Yeah.
And so I think those sorts of things build a little more than me reading a curriculum. They actually tell parents what we're actually doing, teachers are doing. And so I had that question that I think that would be great to see that, and I think the community would want to see that, how we're not just using it in STEAM and math, we're using it right across the curriculum, hopefully in Spanish and other areas. But on top of that, I also sort of had a question. One of the questions I always get from parents is what Mike got, that in that last year, we're not getting that hour. And so how are we sort of adjusting for that? So your answer was, I thought, very good, but there's a consistency. Are the students across all of the 6th grade all getting that same sort of level of coding, and are we able to monitor how they're developing during that whole year to see what their attainment on their level of understanding of, say, Java or whatever we're looking at. It's good to see what these students are able to sort of come out with at the end of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it
Some
totally does.
attainable. So it's good to describe to me O's of arts and those things, which I love.
And it was a box too.
Yeah, but it'd be really great to see what these kids are leaving with at the end of 6th grade in terms of the attainables.
No, that's a very good question. And there are some, like I said, there are definitely some universal experiences for 6th graders. The Hour of Code being one of them, digital citizenship lessons being another one of them, technology, circuits, robotics, those are things that are definite. But then there's also some flexibility in terms of what a teacher is instructing and the way that they're looping that in. I will say a lot of times, you know, what happens with one teacher, they share it. They talk about it at a PLC, and then another teacher says, oh, I want to do that too. Like, that's what happened in 1st grade with them.
That's great.
Like, then they all ended up doing it. I don't even know where it originated from, but I know that in 1st grade, they all ended up doing the Bebop site work thing. And part of that was a technology teacher saying, oh, hey, I did this. And I think part of that was the 1st grade team just sharing and collaborating in the way that they do. But I hear what you're saying about the attainables at the end of 6th grade, and I think that would be a good conversation for me to go back to the tech team about, because I will say that, like, everything I shared with you is a direct, it's their work, you know, it's the work that they do every single day, Jeannie and Rachel and Anthony, and supporting the teachers, supporting the students. So I think that's a good thing for me to go back to them to say, how are we monitoring that? I was going to say assessing, but that sounded almost too strong, but how are we making sure that our 6th grade students are, you know, attaining and maintaining? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks,
Okay,
everybody.
so, you know, I know that the administrative team has done community forums and such, so
We're doing literacy one soon.
we're going to do a literacy one soon.
Yeah.
Nice to hear. Perhaps we can take a look at technology at
In the spring.
Yeah.
this spring would be nice.
Mhm.
I know Amity's doing it right now.
Anything where we can inform the community.
And we moved theirs. We got a message saying that it got moved, canceled and postponed and.
I looked at it, we talked about it briefly, but we really want our STEAM teacher to be a little bit more settled and part of it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So we decided November we want her to stay. So we're gonna wait a few months, but this could be a very nice K-6 night in the spring where we can have examples of expectations and success criteria and outcomes.
So one of the things I noted right at the beginning is when you talked about the new reading and writing curriculum. I was going to ask, are we going to do that for math going forward next time around when we've gone through it? Because I think this would be good, where you could go to the community, have an open forum and say, this is what we're working on,
Yeah.
these are what our kids are working on,
Yep.
and these are the great things. And I think that really breaks some of the barriers down.
Yep,
Absolutely.
yep, and that aligns with the math that's on next year's, and science, absolutely.
Even if you have a couple of year cycle, it would be great. to do that.
Oh, Michael and I have a long list of potential topics, which we can always add to.
Lisa, thank you so much, as always.
We're going to leave Timber out? Leave Timber out.
Yeah, definitely. Makes us happy.
Sarah Beth really wants to go see the squirrel. She's convinced that it's a fun.
I thought it was a squirrel.
It's a Is there a bunny?
Yeah, I was.
Mrs. Sherman?
I was gonna say, I didn't look closely,
I-
I thought it was a bunny too. It has a very bunny vibe.
Wait, you know why? Because there's another squirrel.
She
I want it to be
Wait,
bigger.
there's another squirrel
thought that
that's
was
gray.
We're squirreling from the agenda.
Oh, I see.
There's a squirrel. Wait, there's
There,
another
there,
squirrel
there.
that's gray. I wish I could make that bigger, but yeah, see, there's squirrels, a brown one and a gray one. Maybe that's why.
And do we have, is there a bunny?
I honestly don't even remember. There's so many,
We'll have
it's
to look.
hard to even.
We'll have to come for lunch sometime and
Yes.
take a look.
Yes.
Perhaps the board should offer to serve lunch someday.
I like that.
And then we can look for the animals too.
There's the blueberries though. See the blueberries? Bottom left. Yay, blueberries.
Well, Donna, you have created excitement amongst our board members. Thank you.
I like that.
4B on the agenda, moving along, is the Beecher Road School Infrastructure Building Committee update. And this evening, I'm happy to have Maria Madonna, who chairs that committee for the town,
Here, Maria, I'll try
to give a little update and report. We're happy to have you back at the table, Maria.
Thank you guys for having me here. I'm speaking as chair of the Beecher Infrastructure Upgrade Building Committee. All the members of the board here, from updates from administration and from Lynn and from Jeff, are well aware of all of our work overseeing the roof replacement project and the ongoing site work and drainage project. But in light of the concerns and some of the correspondence expressed to the board over our enrollment and our space issues, I wanted to take this opportunity at the board meeting to talk to the community and update the community on the other work that we are doing, overseeing our consulting work and planning for our enrollment projections and our appropriate educational spaces. And I wanted to update the community on the work that this board and this district has done to proactively address those concerns and the actions that you have all taken and the town has taken to continue to address those space needs. So in addition to overseeing the roof replacement and the ongoing site work and drainage, the Beecher Infrastructure Upgrade Building Committee is also working with consultants hired by this Board of Education and the town to address our rising enrollment projections, our current instructional needs, and to plan for appropriate educational spaces for the students we have now and the students we're projected to get in the coming years. So with that, this Board of Education in 2021 and 2022 recognized that we were well above our current enrollment projections. And because of that concern, this board, led by our superintendent, went out and updated those enrollment projections, and they said exactly as we were experiencing, that we will see approximately another 150 students added to our school population within the next 6 to 8 years. So realizing that we needed to plan for that enrollment, realizing that we had current space needs of our students, this Board of Education formed an ad hoc enrollment, instructional needs, and space planning committee. That committee met in 2023 and included members of this Board of Education, this administration, our teachers, representatives from the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, and members of our community at large. The committee met, that ad hoc committee of this Board of Education met, reviewed our current space concerns and our curriculum needs. We looked at our projected enrollment. We looked at the impact of Connecticut legislation on our preschool enrollment. We explored shared services with our BOA districts and engaged with town leadership to explore existing suitable spaces to expand or repurpose within our town. After we identified what those challenges were, we also reviewed some data. We reviewed our enrollment projections, we reviewed our current enrollment and class size guidelines. We looked towards our current capital projects. We looked at a space and school usage report that our administration put together for us regarding our current space needs. We reviewed the process of regionalization, and we looked at the formation of Region 20 in the state and what was involved in that process, how they worked together to form a new regional school district. We also reviewed an equity, safety, and health presentation that was initially for the Bristol school system, and they also had similar concerns a few years ago, and they looked at expanding their enrollment, and they looked at making appropriate educational spaces and how those appropriate spaces impacted education in their town. And we also looked at other school expansions around the state, both how they prepared for that, what that process was, and how we could look towards some goals and visions for the future of our district. So after the committee met and reviewed that information, there were 2 recommendations made to this Board of Education. The first was to continue formal discussions with our BOA districts to explore shared services, including grade level organization. And the second recommendation to this Board of Ed was to hire a consultant for a feasibility and an education specification study to explore repurposing current spaces in Beecher Road School, evaluation of other expansion spaces, and a comprehensive evaluation of our space utilization and instructional needs. This Board of Ed accepted those recommendations and presented them to the Board of Selectmen, which also supported those two goals. And we currently have two consultants hired to help us with the education specification study and a feasibility study. Those two studies are ongoing. They're occurring right now. We also added on to that goal a building study so we can more appropriately and more precisely capital plan for this structure and this campus here. That work has been ongoing through the summer. And so those two consultants are working together. We have some meetings coming up at the end of the month where they're meeting with grade level leaders and different stakeholders around the school to find out what are those instructional needs and how can we best meet those in the future. So that work is ongoing, and what you can prepare yourselves for in the future are the deliverables of this work. They're in the process of gathering information, which is the phase that we are in now with these two studies. There is going to be some community and district engagement, so please be on the lookout for advertisements of that and ways to get engaged. The results of all of these studies, of the feasibility study and the education specification study, will be presented at a tri-board meeting. If that is not by the end of December, will be probably in the early part of next year, and that is a public meeting. It will be the Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen, and Board of Education will be there, as well as the building committees, and all of the public is invited to attend that as well. And another way that you can get involved is our Beecher Infrastructure Upgrade Building Committees, our public meetings. They are on WebEx, at least for the past few and the next couple of meetings. So if you're in your car, if you're at home, you can always go to the town website, click on the WebEx link, and certainly listen in on those meetings and get some updates. Our next two meetings are going to be Thursday, November 7th, and Thursday, December 19th. Both of those are at 3:30 in the afternoon, and they are virtual with the WebEx link. So I invite the community to listen in on those and look forward to updating you on the tri-board meeting and when there's opportunities for community discussion and engagement. But the committee wanted to make sure that you were aware that this work is ongoing and that this Board of Education was incredibly proactive and started working as early as 2021 and 2022 on these space need issues. So thank you for having me.
Anyone have any questions for Maria? I mean, I don't know how really we could because it was so comprehensive. But about the process or what's going on with the building committee currently? I don't see any. Jeff, do you have anything you want to add as a member of the
Great, excellent job. Yeah, come join us at a meeting. They're great. It's a great committee. So
yeah. Vonda is on the committee as part of the administration. Anything you want to add to?
Just that I'm happy to work with Maria and support any communication and efforts that the town needs.
And Vonda's been great about sharing information that she's heard in other communities that are going through the same process. And so we're taking, a look at what they're doing, so we don't have to reinvent a wheel. So we thank Vonda for keeping her eyes and ears open to that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the two consulting groups have, immense experience in the state of Connecticut, working both with the state, the school construction committee in the state for reimbursements. They're incredibly knowledgeable with that. So I think it's a really great collaboration.
Maria, thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you very much.
Do you miss us?
I do.
Are we the better board? You can't.
We need everyone to work together.
So politically correct.
Appropriate.
Thanks, Maria. Curriculum committee report. Mike?
We met on October 2nd at 4 o'clock, and I think Jimmy, Lisa, and Monda made my job easy because they talked about everything we talked about in that meeting in much greater depth than I could give you a summary. So we talked about, we looked at some of the SBAC scores and bonded the report that included how we're handling technology, especially in 6th grade. So we went into more depth today than we went into in the curriculum meeting.
Good. Anyone have any questions for Mike?
I just have a general question. I know at one point we had talked about how we were going to transition our teaching of drugs.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a better way to say that.
Yeah. The old bear. The old
Not
bear.
using, right,
New
not using
bear.
drugs, for our children tonight. Right, I'll stop. I was wondering where we were in terms of that transition and if we're still in transition, if we had landed on anything.
I mean, that is, I'll let Anna speak to the detail of that. That is a topic that I requested we have be addressed during the curriculum committee. So that's on the list of things that she mentioned for us to take on. I don't know when we would do that,
So-
but I'd be interested in doing that
Sooner than later, right.
Yeah.
So, to be fair, this was on our topic last May or June, and Officer Lynch had lost a dear family member, so we decided to push it off. And this go-around, we went through our list, and I had suggested to Dr. Strambler, this is your agenda. Some of the things that we might want to touch on would be a deeper dive into the data at the subcommittee level, and what else do you think? And Michael wrote back, well, I'd love to see something with DARE, and I'd love to see something with technology. He said, but that sounds like a lengthy agenda. And he said, so if we had to prioritize, I would pick the data and technology, because that appears to be a little bit more pressing with our community. So I would expect that our next curriculum meeting would definitely at least incorporate DARE, a look at what we're doing, a look at what some of our neighboring towns are doing, and a look at, we are required to teach some of this information, so a look at some of the other research-based programs to see what we're thinking. So, briefly right now, Officer Lynch is working hand in hand with Arian Buzzard, our health teacher, and they hit on a lot of the same topics, but some other topics as well. So we could definitely look at that.
So you think you'd be prepared to do that next?
I do.
Okay.
Whenever you
So
guys
next
talk
time.
about that, we just share back with us, like, once a decision has been made. I'd be
Yeah.
curious.
Now, I'm not sure we would make a decision at the next committee level, but I think
No.
that we would look at what's happening and look at resources and talk about, what the board is interested in seeing, what the administrators are interested in seeing, based on, the needs of our students and our community. And I would want
And-
Officer Lynch's security person, Lynch's input too.
Yeah, and of course, I would report out on it here if it's not addressed by, other admin during the meeting.
Anything else, Mike? Okay. Finance Committee.
All right, well, I'll begin by saying, Donna, we're so happy to see you. So glad you're back. All right, so just to hit on the high points, we are a quarter of the way into the fiscal year, 3 months. Unlike, I think, every report I've given since I became the chair of this committee, we are beginning this month with a deficit. So, but for good reason. So just to say, compared to our $118,000 surplus that I reported last month, we're estimating a $38,000 approximately deficit as of this month. Beginning with, where we're on the lower expense side of the ledger, our other purchase services, the 500 series, which is student transportation, tuition, interns. We're benefiting from this saving on an outplaced tuition with approximately $104,000 below what we budgeted. 400 series purchase property services is currently forecast to be about $13,000 under budget. Now, savings we had with the air conditioning turned off this summer, I'm hoping it's back for the days like today.
You're welcome.
We're running pretty much on budget at this point. 600 series materials and supplies, 700 series furniture and equipment, 800 series dues, fees, and miscellaneous. All right, on the higher side, expense side of the ledger, we have the 100 series. So we've had some teacher turnover, we had a vacant school psychologist position, so we were estimating a savings of about $58,000 last month. Well then, we as a board decided we need another first grade teacher. And it's so exciting to hear about all the progress that has all been made just in that month around identifying a new teacher. Plus, we need to add 4 new para-educators. So at the moment, Donna is estimating for us about $120,000 deficit overall. And as she noted in the narrative, this could go higher if we're able to fill the part-time psychologist position. For the 200 series benefits, we're showing a $12,000 deficit at this point. Again, this is up from the prior month because with adding a new staff member, with the other paraeducators, until we know exactly what they will elect to take in terms of health insurance coverage, there's an open question there.
It could change, yes.
It could change. And then finally, for the 300 series purchase professional services, we forecast a roughly $25,000 deficit because we're contracting with ACES to fill that part-time physical therapist position. That all said,
There is some contracted psych services, so that could go down if we're able to fill that, so.
Great. That's my contribution. Donna, anything you care to add?
No, I mean, it's early and, we're just gonna watch, and if this assumes that we are able to stay fully staffed if we continue to maintain this track, then we can think about, holding off on some furniture or some other types of things that we had in this budget that maybe we shouldn't purchase this year. We'll just do the best. And the town will work with us too. Having to have 4 paras that we didn't budget because of people that move or, so I think, they have been our partner through all this, so I'm not freaking out.
That sounds good.
And then for the draft budget calendar,
Yeah.
I'm happy to lead. Do you want to lead?
I prepared a calendar. It seemed like the feedback at the end of last year's budget was that, we squeezing in that extra meeting where people could ask questions was appreciated. So we prepared a draft calendar for this year with that same pattern of meetings, and open to discussion or see if you liked it, that you guys could approve it, and we would proceed with that same calendar mechanism this year.
Okay. Are there any questions about either Stephen's report or the budget calendar, proposed budget calendar timeline?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Very good question. So the first question, when you go with the calendar. So when I look at our sort of budget, 60% of it is salaries in 100. And another 20% is in 200, and the rest is split up into the 6 categories that remain. So the ones that I look at are the first 100. Stephen said, when we have an increase in enrollment, you've got to increase a section, and that's why we're bumped over a little bit. But it's the 200 section. Now, I don't know how to raise this because I know there's implications from the legal side. So we've got the union, etc. But I think we should sort of maybe use October. I know the staffing schedules go out, or I believe the staff requirement reports go out at the beginning of October, am I right? And then they're due at the end of October. And so I was going to say, can we use that October to look at some of those non-instructional large categories to see on a regular basis whether do we change some things? Can we see whether there's a competitive avenue in terms of reducing maybe some of the benefits or some of those other areas, as legal expenses, etc., insurance? Just use that month, because I think it makes our meeting at the end very easy then. Because we know that the 100 series really has very little say over it. But it's that 200 series where it's non-instructional to a degree, or it's related, but we could do something about that. And then in that following 3 or 4 categories or 5 categories, look at those big line items to see on a regular basis, this is the best we can get. This is the best we can get. Oh, maybe we can go out and tender on this. That would be very, very useful, because then when it comes to making a decision where we have a week, questions roll down to, okay, great, this is fantastic, there's not much we can do. So it's that information channel that I'm looking for in October, if that makes sense. Do you see where I'm going with this?
I do see where you're going, but I mean, October does feel early to me. We're just getting started, we don't even have all of our positions filled yet that I would be, I'm giving qualifiers in my.
So I'm not looking really for you to forecast the budget. I'm looking at the drivers.
Mm-hmm.
And the drivers for me are some of these. So I'm coming to this from the perspective of, I'm seeing reports lately to say medical expenses are going up at the corporate level at 15, 20% annually. Salaries are only going up at 3%, 4%.
Right.
So how are we relative to that? How are we relative to other schools on some of those metrics? Because that will be very useful, because when we come around to negotiating, and I know there's some implications with unions, etc., at different levels, but it would be really good to know what are the options. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think we're talking with the town right now about, are we a candidate to be self-insured versus.
That's fantastic. So that's the sort of things I would like to sort of, have a sort of update on, to say, Jenny, we can't do much about that first line, but about the other lines, these are the major items,
Okay.
and these are what we can do. And I thought October would be a good month, because then it gives us a little time, if you needed time, to go out, and if somebody said, oh, have you thought about this? That would give you at least 4 to 8 weeks to go and get that information. Does that make sense? We're not running on that last week or last 3 weeks before we have to make a decision.
Right.
We're really setting up that information channel to say, let's make a good decision at the end of the day. Or the decision is very easy, because you've provided us with everything we need to approve the budget.
Right.
Does that
I
make
might
sense?
not have the answers yet,
Oh, no, I get it.
but we
I get it.
can raise the issue and let the board know.
Right. What's going on here? So we're interested in, say, I don't know, benefits, this type of benefit. We're seeing the trend here.
Yeah.
We have this. What if we move to that? This is what a potential saving might be. Now, I don't know whether that goes into executive session or how that is structured. I'm going to leave that to you guys to make that decision. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Because that would take a lot off the table, I think, with respect to those big items that aren't instructional in a way. That's just my thing on the calendar. And the other question I had very quickly on the budget was that the 4 paraeducators, did we have them forecast already, or were these new incremental?
We voted on those in August, Jay.
Okay, I wasn't.
You weren't at that meeting because of additional needs identified in special education.
So these will be a carry through for subsequent years, is that correct?
It's difficult to say. Children come, children go, children are exited for programs, children in 6th grade may leave that have services that don't require them.
So this is legal requirement? Okay, that's easy.
Yeah.
That's easy. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and that will fluctuate year to year, so that's something
It does.
you can't
We
really
look at it,
control.
correct.
And I know the town has always said when we're in that situation,
They'll help
always
us.
reach out to the town.
They were very good about it.
We budget for what we know,
Right.
and then
This is the
whatever
unknown.
changes are made in enrollment,
Yep.
Right.
we go,
Yep.
we talk to the town. And Vonda and I have met with the town and
Made them aware. Yep.
made them aware of the situation. So they know both about the 4 paraeducators and the additional 1st grade teachers.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any other questions of Finance Committee?
I appreciate the extra meeting, thank you.
Yes,
No,
so
it felt
we
like
like it too,
worked. Yeah,
actually.
we do. It felt like it worked for
I
all
think
of
it's
us.
good.
So I would
I think
ask people right now to mark their calendars for January 6th and 7th, hold the 7th open. Last year, we didn't need that second date, but hold it open so that in case we do need it, it's available. And also, it's a snow date for the 6th, and there's, I've got my fingers crossed that that will be an area of savings in our budget, that we won't have to pay overtime for shoveling. And
Not like 81-degree days in October.
yeah, so today it was nice and warm today, but I've also been told,
Yeah, in December 9th.
and December 9th, right, I'm sorry, thank you. But I've been told that if the squirrels, if there are a lot of acorns and the squirrels are busy, that indicates severe winter weather, and the squirrels are crazy in my backyard, and the acorns on this are out of control.
I sit at
So I don't know. Okay, so mark those dates on your calendar now so that, that we're set for them for December and January.
And we couldn't push them off any farther, right, past the holiday time?
This is
it.
They gave us the.
They gave, you know, we used to have to vote and send
This
it
is
by
our
December
December,
31st.
right.
Yeah, they
Now we
gave
got
us.
January, right?
Yes.
Now we have January, and we got a commitment that
They
they
did.
are willing to keep that time.
Because they're gonna need
frame
it
for
again
us.
next year, and after 3 years in a row, it's just a thing.
Right.
It's a thing.
Right, so, that's that. Okay, I don't think we need to take action on the budget calendar, we'll just move along. And thank you for that work. It'll be on the website, and everybody has a hard copy, and it's on board too, I believe. Policy Committee, Erin.
All right, we reviewed a number of policies. We're almost done with the 9,000 series. There are a number in your packet that were put on 30-day review. I'm going to note 9212, we're not changing anything. 9230, all we're doing is taking away Gabe's suggested reference of themselves. 9240A, we didn't do anything. I will note 9240B and C, we did quite a lot. Mainly what we did was we took out really old, antiquated language, talking about paying for things like phone, like long distance phone calls, or spending more than $10. So most of what we did was just make it so that it was like an evergreen policy, and it wasn't one that had to be updated regularly as, you know, modes of communication changed and things got more expensive. We no longer tip bellboys, for example.
Or send telegrams.
Right, literally. And we also took out the appendices, because that's just not a form that we use anymore, so we took that out. Thanks. 9260, we didn't change anything. And just so it's clear, like, but even though we're not changing anything, we want people to vote on them so that we can put an updated date, so that, you know, at some point, we're all gonna cycle off of this board, and it will be helpful for the new board members to know when these things were last reviewed. 9270A, we just clarified that we were talking about district employees in a couple of the sentences, and district staff. So not a lot at all was changed. 9271A, we thought that we should care about education for all children, not just Connecticut. And then we talked on number 3, we remove some of the identification information, mainly because it wasn't, we have different identities noted in different places, both on our website and in policies, and instead of relisting them all out, it didn't seem necessary here. It just seemed important that we care about all children, and we didn't need to qualify that with different identities in this policy. 9300, we didn't make any changes. 9314, no changes. 9321A, we just simply acknowledge that because of security concerns, we're not going to have electronic participation in closed executive session. That's something we've been doing already, it just hadn't been in policy, so we codified it in policy, and that's it. I will note that we are almost, there's a couple we need to go back to on the 9000 series, but we are almost done. We're trying to figure out what section of the policies we want to go to next. So I know that it's kind of, it sits within policy, but I think since you guys are all so familiar with our policies and really amped about them and excited about them, if there are any policy sections that you guys would really want us to review, please let Vonda or I know. I think we're kind of
5,000s to 2,000.
Exactly.
Right, just agree.
Because you know what those are referring to when we say the 5,000s and the 2,000s, exactly.
Everybody go home and do their homework.
Right. But if there are any policies that you're like, hey, I think it would be helpful to review these next, or things have come up, just let us know, because we are going to make a choice about what series. And then once we dive in, some of the sections are larger than others, but it's nice to do it in totality.
Agreed.
Before moving on to the next. I will also say just that we are going to review the technology policy, because that did come up at the state level, and we know that they're doing a review at Amity. We generally think our policy is pretty good, but again, it used some language of technology that I think is no longer in existence. So we did want to make sure that the language just seemed like we were in our current era of technology. That's it, thank you. Yeah.
Any questions for Erin?
So Aaron, the strategy has been to go through numerically, or has it been to go to the oldest ones first? Or?
No, it's been to go to a section, unless we've had like something come up where we've needed to review a policy, and we have had that. I mean, there were some things in the 9000 series that we did review when a couple of years ago because something came up. It's helpful to review a whole section because honestly, then you remember, like, well, didn't we mention that back there? Or this contradicts with something we say. So it's helpful to kind of do it in these sections and really think about it. So this section was really like, how does the board operate? And how do we operate administratively? And there's other sections as well.
Okay, so you're just going to go sequentially right through.
Well, we have to choose the next section. We don't necessarily have to, 9,000 comes towards the end. So there's, we're probably in some ways going backwards to an earlier series. And so we're open to what series that might be. We have some thoughts, but I just wanted to open it up since obviously we do our policy work on the behest of the entire board, that if there was kind of a desire to, hey, I'd really be interested in what our policies are around this area, certainly now is the time to kind of say that because we're figuring out what section we're going to go to next.
I think that the one thing I would suggest is what you already mentioned, the technology policy. I saw the state's guidance around that policy per se, but it's guidance for policy for districts, and so I think in light of that, it would be good to maybe review that.
Yep, that's on our agenda for next.
Okay. A lot of homework you have, writing in your calendars, looking at policy, so. Cable liaison report.
Sure. So in less than a month is the Cape Convention. I will be at the delegate assembly on that Thursday evening, and then I think there's just a few board members joining this year, but we'll bring back lots of valuable information hopefully.
It's always fun. Also, I would just like to mention that I received an email, and I don't know if it went to everyone, but CABE is going to be offering both a new board member orientation and a leadership conference on Tuesday, December 3rd from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's free. And there will be 2 concurrent programs at that time. One is the new board member track. So if you feel like you need a refresher, or you're a fairly new board member. And the second is a board leadership track, and that's for current officers or committee chairs, or anyone who is aspiring to sit here. And so I encourage you to sign up for that. I forwarded the email to Vonda, and if anyone else didn't get it and wants it forwarded, I'm happy to do that, just let me know. You need to register online to attend. And just as an update on, for the community, for Board of Ed professional development, the people who sit here oftentimes participate in professional development for Board of Education members. This past month, Vonda, Sarah Beth, and I joined Vinnie Lynch and participated in a CABE webinar on best practices to address and communicate about school threats. I would tell board members that that recording is available in CABE's library if you're interested in viewing that. It was an hour and 15 minutes. If you watch the first hour, I think you get a good overview of things. The 15 minutes at the end were individualized questions that were presented. Vonda and I also attended the CABE-sponsored webinar on managing effective meetings and leading through difficult times that were presented for board chairs and superintendents. Vonda and I both thought that the one on leading through difficult times was really excellent. Again, 1 hour and then 15 minutes. That one went actually a little more than 1 hour, I think, but the last 15 minutes is a question and answer. So it was maybe an hour and 20 minutes, the whole thing. And then Vonda and I watched the CABE webinar on how to, I think Donna might have, how the budget is developed, adopted, and the board's oversight in that. Neither of us thought that was the best presented. We really do a lot of what they're talking about. So it was good to listen to know we're doing a lot of what they're talking about it. But we're there. And
So what I found about that one, and I watched that one too, is that it was at a pretty rudimentary level.
it was rudimentary.
What I realized is what I heard from the guys at CABE was that
we're beyond that.
and that's what I've always said.
Yeah.
This school has always set a standard that others have to attain.
Yeah.
And I believe it's the same with transparency and disclosure on items. We've done doing an excellent job with that. But I think we could still go a little further, sort of make some of those changes so that we set the bar. Because I know Kate asked me at the time, I think just before you took over, and one of the things I did say to them is, these are the things we do. And they were surprised at the level of disclosure. So I noticed many schools just write one line item for things. And they put in so many things into there. So that's what I think this was about, to raise that standard from a very, very low bar to about 25%. And I think they're looking to, there's another 2, I think, coming.
There are a few.
Yeah, there's a few more. There's a few more so feel free to sign up or afterward. And if you can't link on in your own library, I can send you the link, or Vonda can send you.
And they're
the link.
archived too. But it's an easy car listen.
Okay, so that's Kate. Upcoming meeting presentations. Our November Board of Education meeting will include a presentation on the LAS links with multi-language learner update. That's all English language learning rolled into one, as well as a strategic plan update. So if board members would reach out to Vonda if there's anything specific that you want to see in either of those presentations, that would be great. I am just going to give a heads up because I know that Erin experienced something with Board Book. I experienced the same thing today. I went in looking for something in Board Book and I was like, it's not here. And so if you don't log out and refresh, Sometimes it appears it's not there, and then we panic and poor Marcia gets inundated. It's usually there, so I encourage you all as a reminder to refresh. If you don't see it, refresh and take a look again, because I saw it on the agenda and I was like, where is it? Where is it? And I just needed to go back and refresh. So that's just a little reminder. I was like, where is it? And then I logged out, went back in and found it. So if you have trouble with Board Book, I do think there might be sometimes a little glitch with Board Book, personally, but.
I would agree 100%.
Marcia would agree. And then, she gets frantic phone calls from me or others, or emails, so.
I think it's excellent, Marcia, the way you set up. She's really good job.
Yeah, and I just knew it, like what's happening in this program, because Erin had said something and then I was like, now I can't find it. So refresh, log out, start again, can help you. Monthly community service announcements, facilities committees meeting, the 7th, Monday, Thursday, November 7th. At 7:30 a.m., Finance Committee is meeting Tuesday, November 12th at 4:30. Next meeting of the Board of Education will be Monday, November 18th at 7 o'clock. Please note that we will be returning to the main meeting room at Town Hall for that meeting.
And our wonderful tech people.
We'll be there too. And thank you for tagging along with us. New business, I don't believe we have any. And we're up to public comment, our second public comment for the evening. I don't see any public comment. And so I will ask if there's a motion to adjourn at 9:28 p.m. Jay Dyer. Is there a second? Mike Stramler. Motion made by Jay Dyer, seconded by Mike Stramler to adjourn at 9:28. All those in favor? Thank you, unanimous. Thank you all.
Thank you,
Lisa,
everybody.
Jimmy, thank you. Marcia, thank you.